Welcome to the Mindset with Morgan podcast. I am so grateful you're here. I'm Morgan, and I am a multiple seven-figure entrepreneur who adores all things business. I love building great teams and great companies who benefit the world. I've been building and running startups for nearly 15 years and have learned a few things along the way. I'm a teacher by heart, and I'm so excited to share with you. I'm also human, and I need a good pick-me-up and mindset shift before meetings, tough conversations, and sometimes just on my morning commute. My hope is that you can use this podcast as a quick mindset reset before you start your day or whenever you need a mindset shift. I also love a good funny story with a helpful lesson involved, and that is what you'll get here. Now let's learn, grow, and have a few laughs. Welcome! I hope you're having an awesome day so far, and today I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite books. So I really believe that if we are not growing and getting better all the time, then we're kind of in decline. I don't think there's a moment when we're just staying the same. We're either getting better or we're getting worse. And I have been a reader ever since literally I could read. I've always enjoyed reading, but at the same time, I know that there's not always time to read. So I was really happy. There was an article that came out years ago that said, listening to audiobooks gives you the same value as reading. And whether it's true or not, I really enjoyed knowing that because these days, I really don't physically read as many books, but listen to more on audio. And honestly, from all the audiobooks I've read, half the books I'm going to share with you, I've actually read the book, and half are on audiobook. And you know what? You can still say you read the book. Sometimes I think I used to feel like I was a little bit of a phony if I said, oh, I read this book, but really I listened to it. No, you read the book. You know what the book said. You have the lessons. You get to share the lessons. And like me, you can teach other people the lessons. So you read the book. So I'm going to share some of my favorite. There are 8 of them I'm going to talk about today and why they are my favorites. And I think one of my favorite things about books is that honestly, as a coach, as a teacher, it can make my life a little bit easier by giving me some content to talk about. For example, if I'm mentoring a new leader in my company, I only have so many things to talk about with them in the beginning, and I like to have lessons that we focus on. Similar to I have a podcast topic every week, right? I want to have a topic when I meet with the person to talk about, and books are so helpful to help me kind of lay a foundation and give us something to talk about. So I'm going to talk about one of my favorite books to give to new leaders, and that is the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John C. Maxwell. So what I love about this is it's a perfect book if you are leading a book club or training a new leader, because you can assign 1 or 2 of the lessons per week, per month, whatever the time increment is, and then talk about them. And each of the chapters are about leadership. And I kind of think of it as like an encyclopedia for lessons someone needs to know when becoming a new leader. And it's so readable. And he uses real people's stories and examples to talk about each of the lessons. There's 21 of them, obviously. So it gives you months worth of content to talk about. And truly, when I've got somebody who's brand new to leadership, I like to think of this as like a new leader guide, because it covers all the basics. But that's not to say that you couldn't give it to somebody who's a veteran leader as well. It's just a really, really helpful and well laid out book for a new leader. So if you are a leader and haven't read it yet, I highly recommend. And if you are training any new leaders, this is an amazing book. It's kind of like the curriculum of leadership. I love it. Second one I want to talk about is The Road Back to You by Suzanne Stabile. So what I love about this book, it's all about the Enneagram. And if you know me, you know that I love the Enneagram because it's kind of like, they don't call it a personality test, but it's kind of like one in that you can take an online test. There's many out there, and learn what your number is. There's 9 different numbers, but I highly recommend reading the book instead. And they say one of the easy ways to know what your number is if you read all 9 chapters. Each chapter is on a number and talks about the motivation behind the number, kind of how the number acts, things like that. And the one that makes you sick to your stomach is probably about you. And truly, when I read the chapter on me, I was like, okay, yep, that's it. So one of my favorite things about this is it kind of talks about the negative parts of the person more than the positive. And I find that very refreshing and helpful, because we all have parts of ourselves that we're like, ugh, and this kind of not exposes them, but brings them to light and makes you be able to talk about it and learn about it. And it talks more about the why behind we do things versus the things that we do. For example, it talks about the fact that, 5 different people could want a corner office, right? And to be the boss. But if there are 5 different Enneagram numbers, all 5 have a different motivation for why they want the corner office. So unlike other personality tests which talk about, oh, this person does this, this is more the hard wiring, the why behind we do what we do. And it's a Christian-based concept, and I really like it. And instead of putting you in a box, which I feel some can do, it kind of releases you from the box and helps you realize that any number can be in any role and do anything very, very well. And I also love about it the way numbers interact with each other. And there's certain numbers I've always enjoyed working with the most, and I could look back, literally back to even when I was a kid, and who I've gotten along with the best, and it kind of all makes sense. So it's a really great book for really anyone looking to learn about themselves. It's also really fun to do with your team, because when you learn about each other, it's actually pretty fun to go, oh my gosh, that's totally you, or this makes a lot of sense. And every time I've done something like this with a team, whether it be this book, Strengths Finders is another one too. It's not on my list, but it's a great team building book, because the more you understand each other, the more you understand that no one's really coming at each other. We're all just kind of being ourselves, and we're maybe always badgering somebody about this, that, or the other thing because it's just the way we are versus trying to be a pain in the butt. And I really love when team members have empathy for one another and understand each other, because it really takes away a lot of resentment and just assumptions that someone's coming at things with a negative feeling. So really, really, really great book for teams. The next one I want to talk about, book number 3, is The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel. I think I'm saying that correctly. This book is amazing. Anybody who really needs to, I'd say, learn about being calm and peaceful and not making accusations or assumptions. If you have somebody who's super reactive or always thinks people are out to get them, or just anyone who's trying to be a more curious leader, this book is really great, because it really has helped me see that nothing is personal. If somebody, let's say, screams in your face today, it has nothing to do with you. And it can help you as a person just take people in a lot differently and better, and really have empathy for others. And know that no matter what someone says or does, most of the time it has to do with something they're dealing with internally. It has literally nothing to do with you. And that can be a really great thing to learn and understand, because it avoids you really getting into arguments. And the more you understand that nothing's personal, the more you can really come to conversations with curiosity and understanding of others. And in leadership, understanding other people is the most important thing, I think. And this is a really, really, really great book to help you do that. It also is just, after you read it, you feel really good about humanity and people and love. And it's just a really calming, amazing, peaceful book. The next book I want to talk about is Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. So anything by Malcolm Gladwell, I'm in. I think he is one of the most fascinating writers on the planet, because of how much research he does into every topic that he writes about. He's a really, really great writer, and he has a podcast too. He's really interesting to listen to. But what I love about this book is that he takes scenarios where you could look at it from the outside, like headline version, and go, ooh, that person's a bad person, or that person's a good person. And he breaks apart situations and breaks apart years worth of their background, where they came from, what they know, what they've learned, how they've been taught, and kind of helps you understand how they get to a very moment and how they then interact with each other. It's fascinating, and really, for me, more than anything, it really helped me see as a leader, as a business owner, that people are really just results of their environment and what they've learned over time. And you can choose, how to handle certain things through obviously reading books and learning and, trying to become better. But people come to the table with decades worth of lessons and thoughts and assumptions. And that's really what the book is all about. And he takes very real, true stories and breaks down why the person did what they did, or why he thinks the person did what they did, based on years of their past. And it's just fascinating. And in leadership, like I said, the more you understand people, the better of a leader you can be. And this book is great. I've assigned it to many, many leaders. The next one I want to talk about is Built to Sell by John Warrillow. This book is amazing for anybody who, honestly, I think it should be the first book, maybe the second book, because the next one I'm going to talk about is the first book. The first or second book that somebody reads when they are starting a business. When I started my first business, the last thing I thought about was selling it. And it just never came up in my mind because you're such in growth and build mode. But you need to be thinking about selling your business the whole time, not just because of the sale part of it, but because of the way that you're going to be creating systems and processes, and they need to be duplicatable if you have any chance of giving them to somebody else, even just for hiring somebody to do something. You want to set your company up for success, to be duplicatable and to be really good at what it does. And this book is great at talking about that. And personally, I love the mentor in the book. He's somebody I want to be someday. And the way he structures his meetings with the main character, I think are just so, so great. And it's a really, really great book. I think if you had a curriculum for starting a business, this would be one of them. The next one, which I highly recommend as being the first one, is The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. I still remember sitting down with my CPA. Getting a CPA was the first thing I did when I started my restaurant. I actually sat down with the CPA before the restaurant even opened its doors, and that's been definitely one of the keys to my success. I've had a monthly bookkeeper and CPA in that business since before day one. And she handed me a book, and this was the book, The E-Myth Revisited. This book has been really helpful for me to see that from the beginning, you do not need to be doing everything in your business. And frankly, if you do, it makes it harder to get out of it. When I started my real estate firm, same thing. I learned from this book, and now obviously this was years later that I started the firm, but when I did, one of my first hires was somebody to basically be the director of operations. And that has helped that business grow more than anything else. Now, I know there's not always a budget in the beginning to do that. It depends on what kind of business you're starting. But just the concept of running your business like a business from the beginning really sets you up for success right off the bat. Great book. I think, like I said, probably first book you should read if you're starting a business. The next book I want to talk about, second to last, is Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. This book was given to me by a mentor in a past company I worked at, and it has been a game changer. I have literally changed from asking the question, how do I do this? Which you guys has been crippling to me in the past. There have been times where I haven't started something I really, really wanted to start. Literally, I didn't start this podcast for years because I did not know where to begin on recording the podcast and how to get it on on where it needed to go. No joke, you guys. Like, this is real. People literally don't do things because of silly reasons, and it might not be silly. It might not be silly now, but it is so silly. So instead of asking the question, how, this book teaches you to ask the question, who can help me with this? Literally, I made one hire and she published my podcast. So it literally just takes somebody else who knows how to do it. Because what's not easy for you is very easy for somebody else. So lean on other people. And you are then a who for that person as well, for what you're able to provide to them. One of my very, very good friends, I still laugh when I think of this book because she calls it Whoville. When I talk about this person or that person, she goes, "Oh yeah, Whoville, you're Whoville," because who not how. And yeah, my Whoville is filled with many, many people who are better at other things than I am. They're a who for me and I'm a who for them. It's our Whoville. And then the last one I want to talk about is Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. This book is amazing and literally changed so much for me. This book was given to me by a dear friend of mine and mentor who I've known for many years, and she told me right away to read chapter 7 because it was an area I was needing some help in at the moment, and chapter 7 is literally amazing. But the whole book is awesome, and it really helps you learn about playbooks and guides and how to delegate. And delegating is something that in the beginning was really, really, really hard for me. I used to be a self-proclaimed control freak. And you guys, it is pretty wild when you start to release control and let other people do things. I learned from the book, they might only do it at an 80% versus you doing it at 100%. But all your stuff getting done at 80% is a lot better than you really not doing it at all because you can't do everything. And this book was really powerful in teaching how to delegate effectively and set people up for success in your company or on your team. So those are the 8 books that I recommend. Like I said, we don't know it all. There's no way we could. And I see books as nourishment for the brain. Just like you have to drink water and eat your vegetables, you've got to put positivity in your brain as well, because we are a compilation of the things that we take in, and putting positivity into your brain, just like listening to a positive podcast, is so important. So I really hope this was helpful. I hope you go pick up some of the books. I would love to hear about what you think about any of these books. And if anything, they're really great guides to help you teach people other things too. Every time I read really any book, there's always something that I learn, and that's what I love about reading and learning. There's always just something new to implement and use in your business or in your life. So hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.